Today I am going to talk about the chemistry of roasting. Guess where I am? I'm in Panama City, the beautiful Republic of Panama, where I own a couple of coffee farms, and also there's a growing community of very active coffee roasting companies. Among one is Cruce Coffee Roasters, and Manuel Barzallo, their roast master, Panama's top expert in coffee roasting and much more, will be joining me as well. And I'm going to explore this world of the chemistry of roasting. So let's have some fun with this inside. So I'm going to take the opportunity here at Cruce Coffee Company here in Panama City to talk a little bit about the chemistry of roasting. We're also going to do a roast with the company's coffee roasting expert Manuel Barzallo. Next to me is a W6A Giesen roaster, has been beautifully preheating. You can hear it purring in the background while I'm addressing this important aspect of the chemistry. So obviously, during coffee roasting, a large number of chemical reactions, chemical transformations take place in order to prepare this coffee for grinding and later for brewing. Green coffee beans, if all has been done well at the processing, producing end, have a coffee moisture of anywhere between 10 to 12%. Partially, this moisture is contained as free water, and partially it's contained in the hydrocarbon structure of the coffee. But the free water is the major proportion of that moisture content. And so upon loading the beans into the preheated roaster, then your thermocouple, both for the bean temperature as well as for the air temperature, they will start dropping, leading to the turning point. But you know, honestly, turning point is kind of a phantom idea. It doesn't tell us very much because effectively, once the beans are introduced into the roaster, the bean temperature starts to really increase. By the point that the thermocouple starts registering this, that's when we are really then talking about the turning point. But that preheating already starts of the beans inside the drum. So the first phase is the drying phase, where the free moisture inside the beans is being heated up. And then once it gets close to the boiling point of water, around 212 degrees Fahrenheit, 100 degrees centigrade, that's when this steam, the water vapor turns into steam, and that creates pressure on the internal bean's cellular structure. Now that first phase, the drying phase, which usually should be anywhere between 35 to 45% max of the overall roasting cycle, that phase is really at the essence. If you do that too fast, then the moisture starts to disperse unevenly, and it can lead to uneven roast, scorching, tipping, and when you do it way too slowly, then you are going to set yourself up for a roasting process that takes too long, which can create a baking effect and so on. So a drying phase is really essential to monitor as well, and that is followed by the phase where the Maillard reactions start. Now, who was Maillard? This was a French chemist, and around 1912 he started to really look at the process of not only roasting coffee. I think that was not his first focus, but it was really the process where food items, foodstuff are being heated. Foods like coffee, they have sugars. These sugars start to break down, and these Maillard reactions are really at the essence of the coffee roasting process. Because if there would not be any Maillard reactions, then coffee would never taste the way it does. So Louis Camille Maillard, he lived 1878 to 1936. Being a physician and a chemist, he was very interested in how these reactions were occurring. And he was the first chemist that really started looking at the reaction between amino acids on one side and sugars. And this work, again, is at the essence of how also we try to understand Maillard reactions in coffee roasting. So Maillard reactions start peaking somewhere around 300 degrees Fahrenheit, but they really start at 250 degrees. This is where you start seeing some first yellowing of the coffee beans. And then they continue. And so we have the drying phase that continues throughout. We have the Maillard reactions starting at around 250 degrees. But then when we continue with the Maillard reactions, we also see caramelization of sugars. Without caramelization, we would not be able to effectively develop the sweetness in the coffee. So basically, the proteins or the amino acids catalyzed by the heat, they cause, kind of an assembly and a disassembly at the molecular level. And that's what the Maillard reactions are all about. Very complex set of reactions. So caramelization then really starts to continue beyond 325 degrees, and that leads also to ongoing browning and the ongoing color changes. While this all happens, we also can perceive differences in smell. During the drying stage, we smell the aroma of freshly dried grass. When the Maillard reaction starts, we are going to get through the phase of hay, like dried hay and bread. And when caramelization really starts to take effect, then we go from this burning sugar, browning sugar smell more towards a first coffee smell. When we get close to the first crack, this is the point where we approach this A point. This is when you can very briefly smell some aromatics from the coffee, then followed by the first crack, which is basically the result of the ongoing pressure developed by the steam that is pushing to the cellular structure. That's when the first crack starts, which is basically kind of a mechanical consequence of all the work that has been done before in that chemical transformation. Now, upon the start of the first crack, then the roast development starts, and that roast development, and the timing of the roast development is at the essence as well. I recommend, if you do like a filter pour coffee or cupping roast, that you keep your roast development time between 10% up to 16, 17% of the overall roast time. If you do espresso roast, you can go a bit beyond that, 20, 21, 22%, but much further, I would not recommend it, because then your acidity will basically dissipate and you will end up with a toasty, roasty coffee in the end. So this is, in a short nutshell, the essence of these chemical transformations. We see also the organic acids that come to development. We see that the citric acids and the Maillard acids, they start to reduce. We can see lactic acids reduce and then increase the darker you roast. Gluerogenic acids, responsible for often more bitter flavors, starts to gradually reduce. And so we see a lot of these by-effects. On top of that, we also can notice an increase in volume, a decrease in mass, in density, and a decrease in weight, which is the shrinkage. I'm here at Cruce Coffee Company inside with Manuel Otero. He is manager of consumer experiences. And what does that mean? What does the consumer experience at Cruce look like?
It involves everything that has to do to experimenting different types of coffees in the format that we have here, that are Nespresso compatible capsules, but with Panamanian specialty coffee.
And here I'm holding one of these capsules, beautiful capsule, and I've tasted some of these capsules, and they're, I would say, the very, very, very best I've ever tasted in capsules ever. And Manuel, what's your secret?
Our secret is we just take care of all the variables that you have to consider when you're making a pour-over at the lab. So we control the roast level, we control the amount of coffee that is inside the capsule, we play with the water temperature that the Nespresso machine uses, so everything is well taken care of at the lab, so the consumer only has to focus on choosing which coffees they want to enjoy.
Very cool, thank you. I'm going to do some roasting with Manuel Barzallo, which will be pretty interesting as well. So let's go to the roastery where we have a beautiful Giesen W6A coffee roasting machine. I'm here at the awesome roastery of Cruce Coffee Company here in Panama City, and their W6A has been preheating. Hey, Manuel, this is Manuel Barzallo.
Hey, how are you doing, Willem?
How are you? Let's do a roast together, okay?
Let's do it.
Great. And Manuel, you have been participating in brewing cup competitions, and what work have you been doing so far with your roasting and brewing work in coffee?
Well, mainly I've roasted for other competitors. I've also competed 2 years ago, probably next year as well. So every time you enter into a competition, it will increase like your performance, or you're gonna improve your profiles. It's the only way to do it. So I've been doing that, also judging competitions, so you get an idea of what the judges are looking as well. So that's a general glimpse of what I've been doing.
So this road, how many minutes are we on our way now? What's the bean temperature?
It's 3 minutes right now. Bean temperature is 115.
Ah, that's centigrade. So we are in that drying phase, and here you can get a good view, good shot of the beans. You know, if I smell, I get like this dry, no, like freshly cut grass.
Yep.
The beans are gradually losing color. At this moment, the moisture inside the coffee is being heated up, and this starts to build pressure, steam pressure on the cellular structure. And it will be interesting to hear from you. What is your rate of rise at this point?
The rate of rise right now it's 7.9. We try to stabilize it. We don't want it too fast or too slow. Whenever we're getting closer to the crack, we try to make it into 4 or 5. And for the after the crack, we decrease the flame, which is what we usually do. And we also, during the profile, we play with the RPM of the machine. So what we're trying to do is the bean will tell you when it needs a gear change, if you want to put it this way, and it will be smoother. It's not going to be like such a harsh impact into the coffee. So whenever you bring it out, you can taste it was treated that well.
So your plan is to reduce the RPMs later in the roast?
No, actually, it increases the RPMs during the roast and decrease the flame. So instead of adding flame, you just play around and start with a high flame and start decreasing and increase your RPMs to keep like the coffees all together.
So with the increased RPMs, you keep the heat transfer at the same rate, more or less?
Yeah.
And while you're bringing your heat levels down. That's an interesting approach. Bean temperature now, what is it?
180.
180. 145 centigrade. Let's look at those beans. So we see, and I hope you can see this well, we see some bean coloration going on. That's, you know, a good sign that Maillard reactions really start to kick off. Maillard reactions are at the essence of roasting. And you mentioned the Maillard reactions, in your opinion, should be a little bit more prolonged to give you more sweetness in the cup.
Yeah, you don't want only the acidity, you want to balance your cup, or at least that's what I usually try to do. Balancing that cup, having that amazing body, but as well having that increased sweetness like peaches and fruits, and also that beautiful acidity you can get like orange acidity or a strawberry acidity as well.
Very cool. I'm going to look for that one bean that I dropped in the cooling tray. There you go. And so Manuel is just gradually, he is reducing the flame level, I can see.
Yeah, I decreased the flame level and I also increased 2 RPMs. The bean was asking for it. So whenever you increase your RPM, you're gonna notice one thing. It's gonna go like 0.1 down and it's gonna start increasing like 0.3, 0.4. So that's when the bean, it's almost like riding a car. Like whenever you're making a gear change, it will, like the car is asking for it, and then you're gonna feel it more relaxed.
And Manuel is a pretty awesome driver. I can recommend you for that experience, but that's a different story. What is your RPM right now?
My RPM right now is 45.
So that's 45 hertz. What is your PA, your air pressure?
My air pressure, I keep it in 180. I try to play around with other factors just to, we have a W1M, So we try to like simulate roast profiles in order to standardize everything. So in the W1M, you don't have the air control. You have it 100% or 180, like all the time. So you try to replicate it and transfer it into this big monster.
So let's see where we are in our chemical transformation. I see some ongoing browning. So Maillard reactions are continuing, and we see now caramelization taking place. And that caramelization stage, again, it helps the decomposition, the change of the sugars inside the coffee. What is your bean temperature right now?
175, we're actually approaching the crack, and you can tell also a decrease on the rate of rise. We're right now doing a 4.3 rate of rise. So yeah, we're actually very close. Usually this coffee cracks around 185. So right now this is like the point where like you get all the caramelization, and right before the crack, right before that, heat expands the coffee.
And that's when you have this, what I call A points, this aromatic release of the coffee, right? It's really cool. Let's see where the beans are now in terms of color. And I can smell some coffee aroma. I think we are hitting this A point right now.
Right now, yeah.
Nice, like a cinnamon color of the coffee. The beans have been expanding a bit. At this point, the oils within the coffee beans are really migrating through the cellular structure. So a lot of things are going on right now. First crack is about to start, right?
Yeah, you can smell already. You can actually smell already, like this aroma of like dried fruit around.
Right,
or like butterscotch.
And now I hear the first pop of the first crack. This is also where we start counting the roast development phase as a percentage. This is the duration between the first crack and the end of the roast, divided by the overall duration of the roast. And I'm looking again at the beans.
Almost cracking a little bit.
I hear a very good crack. So at this point, first crack, the heat has become, or has already become exothermic. It's driving forward the process. A lot of chemical reactions ongoing that will lead, during this roast development phase, it will allow you, it will lead to the modulation of flavor, specifically sweetness, acidity, can be fine-tuned at this stage, and other distinct compounds, citric acid, malic acid, quinic acid. And if you continue roasting, then you can also have a grip on lactic acid, which is kind of a savory aspect of a roast that is slightly more developed.
So right now, for example, you can see whenever it cracks, you have to decrease your RPMs because you want to preserve that heat in the bean just for the development. We're doing a 12% development. Usually for brewer's cup or for any like great brewer, we're trying to aim 9% development. For extremely sugary coffees like anaerobics, we're actually aiming even a 5% development because if not, it's going to be too oily and you're going to have an unbalanced cup.
Cool. Almost ready, right?
We're ready to roll, actually.
And then maybe the camera can show the roasted beans in the tray. Very nice. Final observations, Manuel?
Well, the profile came out as we expected. This is a very interesting coffee profile. It tastes like nectarines usually and sweet orange. So we're trying to have that, and also you can develop a really beautiful flavor to butterscotch. So whenever you're using it in an espresso, it's a very light espresso. It's gonna have a full-bodied cup, but all that sweetness of the peaches and nectarines and the sweet orange you want to have as well. It's very refreshing cup.
What is your website address?
Crucecoffee.com.
Great. You should check them out. If you ever make it to Panama, check them out and come visit us at the farms, or come and visit us at Giesen in the Netherlands, where we can have a lot of fun with these types of roasting sessions. Thank you.